In this video, we're going to be taking the Team Associated Pro 2. This is the DK10, the short wheelbase version. We're going to be putting on these aluminum rear hubs to give us that little bit extra durability, maybe a little bit of extra performance out of this vehicle. I've been driving around and having a blast with this Team Associated truck. Been handing it off to the neighborhood kids and everything and letting them have a blast with it. I think it might be time, after some abuse that it's had, let's give it some upgrades. And the first one that I always like to do, anything that I can do to put some aluminum around the things where the bearings are and potentially give me a little bit extra adjustability with it. That's what these aluminum rear hubs are for. Let's get the body off, wheels off, so that we can get to these rear hubs. With all the parts off, we can now see clearly what we're going to be getting into. We need to get this upper turnbuckle unscrewed out of there, plus this lower pin to get this factory piece off. I'm going to start with this lower pin. This is the 1.5 millimeter driver. With the screw out, we should be able to push the pin through. And then 2 millimeters up here for the top here. I'm going to take the whole ball stud out. Now at this point we have this whole corner free. Popping the hex off and getting this pin out, then frees the drive shaft to slide all the way out. We'll set it to the side. So then the only last thing that we need to do is push out these bearings. They should slide out pretty easily. Just poke them through with a screwdriver or whatever tool you have. And there you go. So that is the right rear off. We're going to pay attention to how this is curved back here. It actually is right side marked. There's usually some toe in that is built into these, so that's why we need to make sure which side we're looking at. Opening up the new package is from the factory team setup. So here is this. It does look like you can see the offset, right? The kit comes with 2 different of the rear hubs, and yes, they are shaped differently, so that does matter. 2 ball studs, a couple spacers, 4 little itty bitty set screws, make sure you don't lose those, and some different toe inserts. The instructions do clearly say that for a rear motor vehicle, which the motor is in the rear here, Team Associated also makes some mid motor vehicles. This is rear. For the rear motor vehicles, the logo faces forward. So again, if we're going to be looking here, if I put this in on this side, that logo will be facing forward, that factory team logo right there. These plastic inserts are then actually toe blocks that slide into these hubs and actually change the toe angle of the rear tires. Now again, this one actually had some of that just built into it, and you'll notice that the size of these holes is dramatically different, and that's because these are supposed to go in there. These all have markings on them, 0 degree, -1, +1. It said if you put them in from the rear, that will make sure that that angle is appropriate. I will be putting in probably the -1 toe in on this vehicle. So reusing the factory bearings, my bearings haven't got that much abuse to them yet. It is a good time to replace them if you need to, but I don't think mine needed at this point. So we're gonna just pop in the bearings in there. They fit in nice and tight. This should be facing towards the front, so I'm going to put that -1 insert. And there is a little nub, it's very hard to see, but there's a little nub right here that helps to align it with this rear hub, so it can only go in one way, and that makes sure that you don't get that you're not doing a caster to it, or that you're just somehow putting it in wrong. So it can go in only that one direction. There are also these little spacers that it provides in case you need to space out and fill that the hub appropriately. Let's see if we need that. So with this in here, oh yeah, look, I've got a lot of wiggle room in here. So we're going to need to use probably both of these spacers. I'm going to slide this pin in with the spacer. Note that the spacers are fitting very, very tightly. I'm going to then put the hub in place and keep sliding this through. With a little persuasion from the pliers there, I'm able to get that in there, and now that looks beautiful. No slop. I'm liking that. I'm going to use the factory screw that was already here to make sure that that pin now does not come loose. We're going to now slide the drive shaft in before we get any further and make sure that it goes back in its cup. Before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and actually put this pin in. And I'm going to go ahead and put the factory hex back on, and that will help make sure that that drive shaft then doesn't fight me by trying to come loose or anything like that. For this next step, the kit came with two more parts that are important. One is this ball stud and one is this little spacer. Now, if you want to, you can swap out the ball stud that was on the original end with this one. It's a little bit shorter so that as it goes down in there, it's not going to interfere with the bearing. I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to use this small spacer. You are going to need to turn the rear turnbuckle a little bit, 90 degrees, because it was straight in before. I'm going to put that spacer on to help elevate it up before I put this down in on the car. Now you have 4 holes on the top of this rear hub here that you can choose, and that any one of those that you choose will change the rear camber of the tires and a little bit of how the suspension behaves through the suspension travel. I'm going to try to look at one that will mimic the factory settings as close as possible. Make sure that you're using, as you install this, make sure that you are using a little bit of Loctite. And then I'm going to use, basically it ends up being the second in hole right here. It's more rearward, and it's the second hole in. I'm going to start with that one as a try to make sure to see if that's pretty close to where it was from the factory. Good news, you have the 4 choices, and it's just a simple swap over as you go in order to change that at any time you want. So now you have the ability to change the camber both from the length of the rod and from mounting location here. Now let me note 2 parts here that I am not using. There are 4 of these little set screws that are available in the kit as it comes. Those would actually go here in the bottom of this hub to help hold the pin in as you drive it. Now I'm not using those because the design of the control arm I have is a captured pin on this side with a screw on this side. That works really well, is very simple. You don't have to worry about thread lock or anything like that. But if you have a different design rear control arm that does not have that captured pin style, then you need to use these itty bitty little set screws along with some Loctite to help hold that pin in place so that you don't lose it. With that done, this corner is finished, so I can go ahead and bolt the tire back on. I'm going to swap over here and do the other side as well. I'm not going to show you every step by step because it should be just the same, but I will let you know if anything comes up that looks out of place. The other side is also done, bolted in just the same as the right hand side. My truck is now all set up, ready to go out and have some more bashing fun. If you have any of these Team Associated 2-wheel drive vehicles and you want to do this upgrade, I hope this video has been very useful for you. If you have any questions about what I did or why I did it, please leave them down in the comments and I'll do my best to explain. If you have any further ideas or want to see other things that I've done with these vehicles, there'll be a playlist popping up to your right where you can see them there. Thank you for your time. Talk to you later.